Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad al-Nabi al-Ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First of all, Jazakumullah khair for attending. Today, inshallah, we are starting a new series of hopefully discussions. And the series of discussions will be around the uniqueness of the Muslim Ummah. And why the Muslim Ummah is the way it is today, what it was, what it's supposed to be, etc. So our discussion is really what makes our Ummah different from other Ummah, from other nations. And before we start with the discussion itself, just let me put some basic rules out. Is that we are going to be, because the class is short, it's about an hour or so, we are going to be doing just highlights. We're not going to be going deep into the discussions. But so basically what we're aiming for, what I'm trying to do, is just to spark your interest into taking it a bit further, to study more, to read more. You can attend as many classes as you want. If you do not read, you will not learn. You'll always be limited to whatever you're being fed. But if you think independently, if you think critically, if you read on your own, then you will learn. And you'll form your own opinion and your own understanding. So, we will talk about the main features of the Muslim Ummah, since really most of us have not gotten the chance to, for various reasons, to study what is the Ummah, what are the features of the Muslim Ummah, etc. And inshallah ta'ala, once we go through a certain list of topics and you do your reading, you will have no choice but to feel proud of being a member of the Muslim Ummah, even though we are in the worst situation probably in history for the Muslim Ummah. You will have no choice but to feel proud of being a member of it, and inshallah ta'ala, that will give you a push to bring back, to start pushing for an improvement of the situation of the Muslim Ummah. Just as I said, it is going to be a discussion-based class. So what I would say is that if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. Feel free to interrupt me. It's okay. It's not bad. For those who attended our class about the Madahib, we were discussing how the class of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah used to be. Abu Hanifa's class was like a flea market. People were yelling and raising their voices, etc. And that was not disrespectful to Abu Hanifa rahimahullah at all. It was just a way of learning, different from other scholars. And if it's going to be interactive, feel free to ask your questions. When you have the question, don't wait, because you might forget it. But as long as the question is related to what we are discussing. And if at the same time, if I'm in the middle of a sentence or a talk, I'll tell you just to hang on for a minute, and I will come back to you, inshallah ta'ala. But at the same time, if I don't, you might hear me say, I don't know. I am not embarrassed to say I don't know. If I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know. It's not about, image, it's not about, it's about understanding our deen, understanding, the truth. So that means there are limitations. All of us have limitations. If I do not know, I'll tell you I don't know, and I'll come back to you, with the answer, inshallah. Okay? If you disagree with my point of view, feel free to disagree. It is perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, it shows that you're thinking, and that is good. We can disagree with each other, and as long as we're respectful of each other, as long as we are talking to each other with the sincerity of Islam, and that the sincerity of trying to understand the truth, etc., there is no problem in disagreeing. There is no problem in somebody saying, Muhammad, I think you're wrong. Okay, it is okay. I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong, again. That's not a problem. So as long as we are respectful to each other. Any questions or any comments before we start? This is what I just want to say before we start the topic. Any issues? Okay. So to understand what we are discussing, to understand the idea of an ummah that we're discussing, Let's go back very briefly to see how the word ummah was mentioned in the Quran al-Karim. You know, because just to understand what we're talking about, and also for people who read the Quran, and I hope inshallah all of us do, when you read the Quran, you come to a word ummah, and then you say, wait, this is not exactly what we covered in the class. How come it means this way, not that way? Well, let's take some of the meanings of the word ummah. For those who know Arabic, the word ummah is from what they call al-fadl al-mushtaraka. You know, the utterance that has more than one meaning. Meaning, like the word ayn. You know, ayn in Arabic can mean eye, it can mean a fountain, it can mean gold and silver, it can mean spy, it can mean, you know, multiple meanings. That's called lafz mushtarak. It has multiple meanings. The same thing with ummah. Ummah also, one word has multiple meanings. So when you have such words, how do you know which one is really the right meaning that's intended in that part? The context, the flow. You know, what is the context of that ayah? So the first one, for example, one meaning of the word ummah is time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Yusuf says, وَقَالَ الَّذِي نَجَى مِنْهُمَا وَادَّكَرَ بَعْدَ أُمَّةٍ. And the one who was saved and remembered said after an ummah. An ummah means here a period of time. Okay? So obviously we are not talking about a period of time. Another one is just a group of people. Just the word ummah means a group of people. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تِلْكَ أُمَّةٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ, that is a group of people who have passed. Meaning it's a group of people. وَوَجَدَ عَلَيْهَا أُمَّةً مِنَ النَّاسِ. And he found a group of people, you know, talking about Musa alayhi salam, when he met the two women, who were trying to get the water for their herd. Another use is a man or a person who is the uswa, who is being followed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Ibrahim alayhi salam, about Ibrahim alayhi salam, that inna Ibrahim kana ummatan, that indeed Ibrahim alayhi salam was an ummah. An ummah means an example to be followed, etc. So of course, again, we're not talking about us being an example to be followed. That's not the meaning of the word ummah we are after. Another meaning for the word ummah you find in the Quran is the sharia, the law, the way, the method. So for example, when the mushrikeen, the idol worshippers said, إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَىٰ أُمَّةٍ, we found our forefathers on a ummah, on a way, on a sharia, on a set of laws, and we are going to follow them. Another example, which is the one that we are really are after, is when Allah Ta'ala says, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ, you are indeed the best nation, the best ummah. And what is this ummah here? The followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So this is what we're talking about. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. And indeed we have made you a ummatan wasata, and we'll talk about wasata later on. But sometimes they say balanced ummah, balanced nation, and sometimes it means the best nation, etc. But it is still describing the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, meaning the Muslim ummah. So when Allah Ta'ala says, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ, you are indeed the best ummah that's out to mankind. You command good, تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنْ الْمُنكَرِ, and you forbid evil, وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ, and you believe in Allah. So this group of people who believe in Allah, who command good, forbid evil, this is the Muslim ummah. This is what we are talking about. This is the body, if you wish, which we are members of. But if you want to know what it means to say Muslim ummah, maybe we need to talk about the era before Islam. If I ask you what was worshipped in Arabia, how was the religion in Arabia before Islam, who would know? Who knows? Feel free, just speak up.
They were worshipping idols.
They were worshipping idols. And how did they worship them? Why did they worship them? Exactly like we just said, we found our forefathers, imitation, blind following of forefathers. We found our forefathers doing this, we're going to do this. Okay? So whether they make sense, it does not make sense, it does not matter. This is what they are on, this is what we are going to follow. Now, how about the economic system? Does anybody know how they dealt with finances, with what was their source of income? How did they deal with each other? Trade. Some of them were farmers, depending on where. But also in terms of financial transaction, there was very common amongst them to do riba, usury. So basically, you borrow from me immediately, you owe me more, and if you're not able to deliver, what do I do to you? I enslave you. You become my slave. That was part of the system. If you talk about, for example, the social aspect of life, what was the position of women in the Jahiliyyah, in the era before Islam? Absolutely property. They had, if you want to know how Umar bin Khattab, used to refer to, he said that we, in the time of Jahiliyyah, meaning pre-Islam, we did not count women to be anything until Islam came. He said we did not consider them to be anything. So they were when I say property, it's not an exaggeration. So if a man is married to a woman, if he dies, what happens to the woman? Inherited by the son. Well, what about, does she want that? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It did not matter. So automatically she's transferred to the son. She was not able to inherit, she was not able to keep her money, etc., etc. And as a matter of fact, so you can see where this is heading. Education. How was the educational environment in Arabia before Islam?
Non-existent.
It was called Ummah, Jahiliyyah, meaning Ummah Ummiyya, the unlettered people. They were unlettered. They were not educated people in Arabia. They had nothing called education as such. They had only one thing that was going for them. The Arabic language. The Arabic language. That was it. That was it. And not only that, they used the Arabic language because to say that whoever knows it is an Arab, and whoever does not know it is beneath us. He's an A'jami. When you say A'jami, by the way, one of the meanings of the word A'jami is what? Does anybody know? Animal. The word Ajma, they would refer to the animal, like a mule. You would say, Ajma, it does not understand. So anybody who did not understand Arabic automatically was inferior to the Arabs, and they were named as A'jami, and with a derogatory way, not the fact that really they don't understand Arabic. No, in a derogatory way. Because for them, race was everything, lineage was everything. The Arab is better than an Arab. The one who does not speak is below us. And at the same time, within the Arabs, who's from which family? And from those also, who's the richest amongst us? So everything was set up in such a way where if you have to be the rich, you have to be white, you have to be Arabic speaking, you have to be from the best lineage, etc. for you to be considered. Yes, sir.
With that point, how did the Prophet
And we'll come into it, inshallah. But this is the situation before Islam, and the people who were ruling as well. So there you had people who were influential ruling, no say, no input from the people at all. This is it. This is so and so. This is the well-known tribe leader of so and so. And these people were actually making the decisions for everybody else. Okay, so the person would, for example, with the case of slaves, they would kill their slave in front of the people, and nobody would have have the right to object. Just like what they did to Bilal, what they did to Al Yasir, etc. And nobody, that's it. They have the right to do what they wanted because that was the setup that was in place. Yes.
Did they also kill female infants?
Yes, they did. And sometimes they killed them out of poverty because they were not breadwinners, right? So it's a bit more complex than most people think. Sometimes they killed them out of poverty. Sometimes they killed them out of that we are in constant wars. They were in constant wars. I do not want my family's honor to be violated. So if I have a daughter, I have a wife, I have a sister, these if I lose, because that was the name, that was the system. If you lose, your family becomes slaves of the other ones. So I don't want my family to be dishonored, so no girls. So it wasn't just a matter of superiority, that the man is superior to the woman. It is a matter of also, I want to protect my honor, and that was part of the Arab culture, at that time. Part of it was, again, as I said, financial, economical. So they did not want to, have the burden that now I have to feed another mouth. That was their idea. So in that environment, in that background, then you have Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes with an idea. He comes up with an idea. What was the initial idea that he came up with? What was it? What did he come up with? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. That was it. That was it. But he brought that idea, and he was actually, with that statement, he was the first member of that ummah. Because the ummah, as we will come to see, how it is formed. But he was the first member to come and say, there is none worthy of worship. When I say none worthy of worship, meaning in Arabic, ibadat means ta'a, to obey. And when you say none worthy of worship, meaning none worthy of being obeyed, absolutely, unrestrictedly, without questions, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. So that we have one creator and we worship only the one being, and that is the creator himself. And that he, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is the messenger, to mankind. That was the statement. And he started alone. But then what did he do? He went and he carried the da'wah to his wife, Khadija. Khadija became the second member of the Muslim Ummah. Now the nation started forming. Third one, Ali, his cousin, he became another member of the Muslim Ummah. Next one, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he became another member. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was a good man with many relationships because of his business. He started attracting other people, Uthman bin Affan, Abdurrahman bin Auf, etc. And you can count. And he added those, Abu Ubaidah al-Jarrah. He added all these people, and the Ummah started forming. But on an idea, on a conviction, on a set of beliefs. From the outset, look at the message that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought, and look at the Arabia before Islam. So for the religion, it said that there is no multiple gods, there is only one. Automatically, he's setting himself from the first statement of Islam, setting himself on a confrontational path with the society he's in. That's just the nature it was, the nature of the message. It came to say immediately, there is no one to be worshipped but Allah. So all of your idols are null and void. They're invalid. Okay? They started with, who's the decision maker? Who's the decision maker? Who makes haram and halal? Before it was their priests, they used to make the haram and halal for Quraysh, as an example for the Arabs. The Arab leaders used to say, what is the Arab tribe, the tribes, norms, etc. But he comes with the message that no. Only God who makes right and wrongs, who makes right, prohibited and permitted. Then he comes to another aspect. He comes to the way that they dealt with finances, the way that they dealt with money. And he says that with money, it is haram to have anything called riba. There's no usury. If you lend, you're supposed to get your money back. Nothing more, nothing less. And if the person does not pay you back on time, what do? You wait until they're able to pay. If they don't have it, فإن كان ذو عسرة فنظرة إلى ميسرة. If he's unable to pay, wait until he's able to pay. That was another challenge to their system. But then he even comes to more fundamental things. Look at he says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى. O mankind, we created you from a single male and female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. And we made you into nations and tribes and groups of people so you may recognize each other. The black will remain black, the white will remain white, and the one in the middle will be in the middle. You cannot change that. That's not only that's the creation of Allah, that's a sign of Allah Ta'ala. We see that change in colors, and not as who's better and who's worse. We see that as a sign of the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the power of Allah ta'ala. Very radical shift. Because at the end of it, he comes and he says, Inna akramakum inda Allahi atqakum. The best of you in the sight of Allah are the ones who are the most pious. Now that is radical. That is very fundamental, because now it's no longer the lineage, it's no longer the money, it's no longer the status, it's no longer the color, it's no longer who you are. Now it is actually, are you God-fearing or not? If you are, then you are better than the one who is not. Which means what? Now the slave is better than his master if he's pious. The black is better than the white. The woman is better than the man if they are pious. The man is, so in other words, all of the side parts, your color, your background, your language, your lineage, how much money you have, all of this becomes irrelevant, immaterial in the sight of God. The only thing, one factor, which you can control. I cannot control my result. Somebody comes and works very hard and still does not make enough. Somebody is born black, somebody is born white, somebody is born yellow. How can you control that? How can you control your height? How can you control your features? How can you control your lineage? I was born to this family, I was born to that family. All of these, on what basis do I say I am better than the other person? None of this is within my control, but the taqwa is. When I say I'm God-fearing, that's within my power. So in other words, it made it an equal opportunity for everybody. You want to be better than everybody else? Be better than them, being a better servant to Allah Ta'ala than everybody else. So from the get-go, the idea is radically different from what the society was presenting. They're presenting that women had no say. But look at what Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, النساء شقائق الرجال. The women are the twins of men. Whole human being responsible for their actions, their minds, their intellect. They're just another human being. One is male, one is female. That's it. There is no superiority of one over the other, because when you say Inna akramakum inda Allahi atqakum, the ones in the sight of Allah is the one who is most pious. This can be male and female, it can be white or black, it can be slave or free. It does not make a difference. A very different equation from what was presented in Arabia before Islam. When Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, "Kullukum li Adam," kullukum li Adam, and your father, in one hadith, your father is one, meaning Adam alayhi salam, the first man. Your father is one. وَرَبُّكُمْ وَاحِدٌ. أَبُوكُمْ وَاحِدٌ رَبُّكُمْ وَاحِدٌ وَأَبُوكُمْ وَاحِدٌ. Your father is one, your God, your Lord is one. وَكُلُّكُمْ مِنْ تُرَابٍ. And you are all from dust. You all come from the earth. Okay? And what does he continue? He said, لَا فَضْلَ لِعَرَبِيٍّ عَلَى عَجَمِيٍّ. There is no preference of an Arab over an Arab, nor an non-Arab over an Arab, or a black over a white, or actually an Arabic expression is red over white. That's how that's equivalent of black over white, and white over black, except by taqwa. Did I convey the message? The Prophet ﷺ says, have I conveyed the message? The Sahaba, the companions replied, yes, you have conveyed the message. And that was very radically different from what the people had in Arabia at that time. So when we say this, now we say that Muhammad ﷺ was the first man in this ummah, and then they started gathering around this set of ideas, this set of beliefs, this set of values, that we are nothing but Muslims, and we worship no one but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We adhere to nothing but the Islamic rule, that we are the best of us is not on any basis but the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That and then of course you have rights were added in, that al-Muslim akh al-Muslim, the Muslim is the brother of the Muslim. And look at the adjective here, Muslim. The Muslim can be short and can be tall, can be white, can be black, can be man, can be woman, it does not matter. Muslim. The Muslim is the brother of the Muslim. لا يظلمه ولا يخذله. That you do not do injustice towards them, nor do you let them down. كل المسلم على المسلم حرام. All the entirety of the Muslim is haram on the other Muslim. ماله ودمه وعرضه. The wealth, your money, the money of the Muslim is haram on you. You cannot take it without his or her permission. You know, their blood, you cannot spill their blood. You cannot harm them. You know, to the point where it got to the point you cannot hurt their feelings. You know, when Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, if you were three, don't let two of you talk in private while the third is standing. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ يُحْزِنُ. Because that makes them sad. Sad? Look at the difference in the level where they were to the level that Islam is bringing them. You cannot even make your brother or your sister sad. You know, we have to be even considerate of what makes others sad, etc. That's the level that Islam, you know, came and elevated such people. And this is once this is formed around these ideas, there were ramifications. Before I talk about that, anybody has any questions or comments? Yes?
Looks like someone else is teaching too.
Yes. Alhamdulillah. This is a good thing. Okay? So if you notice, what the Europe now and the West till today, United States till today, suffers from the idea of racism. The idea of black and white, they have not resolved it, and it's been hundreds of years. Islam from the get-go resolved the issue of the idea of racism. From the get-go. From saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, automatically the idea of who's better, who's worse, who's this, who's that, that is resolved. That has nothing to do with the color of your skin, or your origin, or your language, or what you eat, none of that. You know, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. That statement is so profound. You know, that actually it addressed the issue of race, you know, from the day one. You have by definition, you have the issue of the women and the rights of women that are now, you know, and it's been going on for the longest time. Can the woman vote? No, she cannot vote. Now she can vote. Can she be this? Can she not be this? Is the woman equal to the man? Not equal to the man? And this discussion in the West. For us Muslims, this issue has been resolved, you know, from the inception of Islam. You know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And the Rasul said, An-nisa'u shaqa'iqu rijal. They are the twins of the men. But then look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتُ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. You know, and the believing men and the believing women, awliya, they are supporters, they are the ones who support and provide for each other, help each other. It's not a competition. From that day, that's not a competition. You know, it is a complementing each other. Again, and not only that, he says, وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. And do not wish what Allah Ta'ala has given some over the others. And he did not say what he gave men over women or the women over men. He said some over others, meaning Allah Ta'ala has given some things to women which men would like to have. And we'll talk about women inshallah Ta'ala when that issue comes. And vice versa. You know, do not wish what Allah Ta'ala has. لِكُلٍّ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا. You know, each one has their share of what they have been given. Again, addressed a fundamental issue that till today, you know, the world is still talking about the rights of women. What are the rights? Are they equal? What does it mean to say equal? You know, equality between men and women. How do you define it? Which feminist standards you want to start? You know, all of that is still a debate and still going on. And for us Muslims, this has got settled, you know, for over about 1500 years ago. The issue of knowledge, and the issue of seeking knowledge, different from other groups. Islam makes seeking knowledge as a fundamental issue. What was the first ayah that was revealed? Iqra. But isn't it strange that the first ayah will be revealed is Iqra to people who do not read? And you know, you're coming with a command, read, to people who do not read. You know, our preference, how do we differentiate amongst the people? In other words, do we have clergymen in Islam? Do we have clergymen? Do we have priests? Do we have priests? This is yes, this is no. Yeah, do we have priests?
No.
We don't have priests. So what do we have? What is a sheikh? This is a tough question. What is it here? We have scholars, ulama, and we have actually the preference is for the iman, al-amal al-salih, and al-ulama. You know, the ulama are the ones when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِ الْعُلَمَاء, elevated the fear, the true fear of Allah ta'ala to scholarship. People who are knowledgeable of Islam. And knowledge, I mean deep, thorough knowledge. These are the ones who are actually the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our, the idea of seeking knowledge and the idea of learning, this was something, a very common feature actually of the Muslim Ummah. And it was not restricted to the studies of Islamic studies. It automatically, because the Muslim Ummah views itself as a guide to mankind. We are responsible for mankind as a Muslim Ummah. Automatically, it transferred to what? To the worldly sciences. So when Muslims were, or the Muslim Ummah was present as a nation, as an Ummah, because the word nation needs to be defined before we use it. But as an Ummah, then you find the excellence of Muslims in various sciences, in medicine, in astronomy, etc. And I'm sure 100% that you guys all heard all kinds of talks about them. You can look it up on YouTube, just how the achievements of Muslims. And you will find that, by the way, this is something for us to understand, and it's interesting. These people did not differentiate between the religious sciences and what they call now secular sciences, the worldly sciences. You will find a scholar to be a faqih, a jurist in Islamic law, and at the same time a doctor, a physician. You find him to be an astronomer, a mathematician, like Ibn Hazm, as an example. He would be a scientist in one field, and at the same time, he is somebody who is also a scholar in Islamic law, or a scholar in Islamic aqidah, or ilm al-hadith, etc., etc. We did not have a conflict with science and the idea of religion versus science, etc. That did not exist in the Muslim Ummah at all. Any questions? Yes.
I have more of a comment and then a follow-up question on that.
Okay.
And it's okay if that is maybe far ahead we want to discuss, that's okay too. Just reviewing the overall situation so far, from the history, from the pre-Islam time to the emergence of Islam. So my first question is, what was, and if there was, an economic benefit of idealism or that pre-existing religion? And was that controlled by a governing body who wanted to make sure that the masses stay uninformed? So that's the first question, right? Was there a set of principles that they were following for that religion, so-called religion? And then secondly, and this would be further when we discuss this topic, Islam came and Prophet Muhammad came and he was giving the message which was of common sense, equality, and sparking everybody to use their intellect, right? So now, with the governing body who's pushed that initial religion as per se for economic benefit, if that was the case, there could be an opposition that, now the pot is being stirred unfavorably. So the question is, was there a set of principles on that religion? Was there economic benefit? And how much of this is viewed as a stirring the situation?
Yeah. Well, it was, first of all, of course, there was an economic benefit and status as such. Right. Because Quraysh was in control, let's say, of the Kaaba. And Quraysh, as you know, it's a tribe that has many sections, within Quraysh. And Rasul was from Bani Hashim, from Quraysh, right? So, and they controlled different aspects of the Hajj, or the pilgrimage that was given. Some of them had control over the food and the drink. Some of them were, about the caretaking of the pilgrimage pilgrims when they come and how they settled, etc.
This is pre-Islam.
This is pre-Islam,
right?
And so this is, and there was competition amongst them. But there is something interesting. there was economic benefit, and even though the reliance of, let's say, Quraysh was not on that, was on business, you'll be surprised that actually they used to do this for free for the Hajjaj, for the pilgrims. There was economic benefit in terms of when you have new people coming to your society, they're going to spend. Just naturally, they're going to exchange, and they, but the siqaya and the imarat al-masjid, taking care of the building and the well-being of the building, and that it was actually a matter of status amongst them. I, get that status by serving the pilgrims. And for the Arabs, status was more important than actual financial gains. So they used to compete, amongst them, the various sub-tribes of Quraysh. They used to compete who's going to do what for the Hajjaj for free. For free. But and at the same time, Quraysh actually, they believed in this. They actually believed in God Almighty. We believe in them. They believed in God. But they said, He's too powerful for us nobodies to worship Him directly. So I need somebody in the middle. Who's in the middle? An idol. Didn't they say, وَمَا نَعْبُدُهَا إِلَّا تُقَرِّبُنَا إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى? We only worship Him to get us closer to Allah. So in other words, the purpose is not really them. The purpose is God Himself. But the problem is, I can't communicate with God directly because He's all powerful, He's all, and I'm nobody. So I need somebody in the middle. Especially these idols were actually the idols or the images or resembled famous good people in the past. These were righteous people, and these people were around the Kaaba. So now through these righteous, people, idols, I'm going to get close to Allah Ta'ala. So that was their thing. And of course, if in the seerah, you'll find immediately they because the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ridiculed this way of worship. Why are you worshipping them? They cannot do anything good, any bad for you. They cannot harm you. So why are you worshipping them? Worship God alone. Why are you not worshipping Him alone? Who said that you would need to go this way? Because how you worship has to come from God, not from you to God. Right? So, so it was very. أجعل الآلهة إلها واحدا إن هذا لشيء عجاب. That this is strange that He made all these gods that we worship, He made them one. It was very diametrically opposed, let's say, to what the society actually was living with. But also, by the way, when the Rasul ﷺ built that ummah, and the people who believed in these set of values of the oneness of Allah Ta'ala, believed in Muhammad ﷺ as His messenger, believed in equality amongst the Muslims in terms of race, in terms of colors, etc., who believed in all of this, now they belong to this Muslim Ummah, and that formed a belonging amongst the people. It formed a belonging, an identity, an affiliation. Who are you? Who are you affiliated with? I am part of the Muslim Ummah. Because before everybody was a poor person. Okay, I'm from this tribe, but your tribe is nobody's. Or you're a slave, you're an ex-slave, you're somebody who's, all of that was gone, and they were all given that support, that based on the values, based on the cornerstone of the entire Muslim Ummah, which is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That's our belief. That's our cornerstone of who we are, of our thinking, of our Ummah as a nation. That this is really what the cornerstone is. It's got no other implications. And that became an extremely successful model. Because once the Prophet ﷺ did that with the initial group, how long did the Rasul ﷺ call for Islam before he passed away? Altogether, the entire message, how long did it take? 23 years. Well, what can you do in 23 years? What can you do in 23 years? But actually, he formed that group with that cornerstone of Aqeedah, of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, of those values, of the idea of belonging to that ummah, and for each member of the ummah to be responsible for the other within that ummah. And those people carried the same idea to the next people, to the next people, the next people. And what's amazing is that the success was not only at the initial point, the success was at every point, where once the people who received this message, they became Muslims themselves, they belonged to the Muslim Ummah itself, They abandoned their previous, belongings. They became part of the Muslim Ummah, and they themselves carried it to the next people. It wasn't a group of Arabs they were the nucleus. It wasn't a group of Arabs who carried it and kept on carrying it and carrying it. That's not true. On every level it was not true. It became that they just did their role, and then it just kept on snowballing and rolling. And people, and alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, look at where we are now. And as I described, the situation we, the Muslim Ummah, are in now, in the way is the worst that history has shown us. Okay? And still, despite that, we still have people who come and flock to Islam. There's still people talk about, the fastest growing religion and all of that, about Islam. Even though nobody is propagating it really on a mass level. And we have so much negativity attached to Islam and the Islamic belief system and the Islamic values, etc. It's unbelievable. And you still have that because of the uniqueness of the Islamic beliefs, the Islamic values, the simplicity of them, that they match. You can prove them rationally. They match the human being's nature. That they function naturally, to the human being. So I'm saying that success led us to come to a point where we're talking about 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 billion Muslims, on the earth. How did that happen? How did that happen? And not only that, the people who endorsed those ideas. You have because once Arabia was conquered and the Muslims ruled and etc. Now it's after the Arab lands. So you have most of the Muslim scholars were non-Arabs. Al-Bukhari and Muslim, the origin of Abu Hanifa, even the origin of Imam Malik. You have even later other scholars throughout history. They were not Arabs. But it did not, nobody said, well, you're not Arab, or it did not matter. Well, they were all members of the Muslim Ummah, and they took pride in them that this is a Muslim who did this is a Muslim who did that, because that's really what mattered. And that's part of the beauty, the power of the Islamic Aqidah and the concept of an Ummah that we're talking about. That's not an exclusive group. It is really anybody who believes in this, and we don't do lie detecting test. Who's a Muslim, who's not a Muslim, what do you believe, what do you believe? You say, La ilaha illallah, Rasulullah, okay, stand in line, we pray together. You read better than me, then you lead the salah. It doesn't matter who you are, because we have criteria, we have ideas that govern our behavior and our thinking. It's as simple as that, and that really made Islam very powerful. Look at the main features. We're talking about the Muslim Ummah. We believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We believe in Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We command good, we forbid evil. When you say you command good, forbid evil, it means you are not a complacent person. You're not a lazy person, by definition. You cannot see something bad and not do something about it. You cannot see abuse, you cannot see injustice, and you accept it as a status quo. This is just against, the nature of Islam, the nature of Ummah. تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. Even if somebody is struggling, you were supposed to go there, وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر, and we tell them to be patient, and we strengthen each other and we support each other and we keep pushing forward. That is just how the Muslim Ummah is or was, right? Before I discuss the last piece, yes, brother.
Also, to recap some of this sake, inshallah, say that, technically speaking, that the ills that you mentioned that were relative to the pre-Islamic era, when it comes to how people perceive others, they will looking down on people, whether you're Arab, non-Arab, regardless of race.
Okay.
Like these types of things, these are some ills, of course, that we're currently seeing now, today. Unfortunately, because of the way that the television perceives people to be, although we are Muslims, although we know sometimes like Islam because and the best example, it shows how we should be with one another, we still allow, unfortunately, the stereotype of the nonsense that they try to portray certain people to be, it still become part of our deed in our own heart. So technically, like, my thing is, in our Indian
No, it's not. And that's exactly where I broke off, and as I said, that's how it was. Because sadly, with nations, when we say the Muslim Ummah, nation, and nation here I don't mean it, so that everybody understands it. When I say nation, I don't mean a nation limited to geographical boundaries as defined in the nation state, the concept of a nation state. The concept of a nation state is very different from the concept of ummah. The concept of a nation state is that you have geographical boundaries, you have people who are, the differentiation is between two sides, who's born in the country, who's born within that geographical boundary, who's a foreigner, who's outside of it. Loyalty is to that geographical boundary. You're going to spill your blood protecting that line in the sand that says, this is my country. You know, that concept does not exist in Islam. In Islam, you are going to defend Islam itself, you defend Muslims wherever they are, and you are going to defend the Muslim land. So today the Muslim land is this, you're going to defend this. Tomorrow the Muslim land is that, you're going to defend that. You know, it's not, there's no geographical boundaries, and there is no loyalty but to the La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Your belonging is to that. So now, when I say nation, Muslim nation, please understand it in that way. I don't mean any nation state or any. I'm just translating ummah to a nation. So